Okay, hello folks. Thanks for tuning in. In this episode we have chapters 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Must be some real short ones in there. Hope you enjoy them. Chapter 10. As Susan got ready across the street, a man dressed in black walked into the restaurant. He surveyed the room as he stood at the maitre d's booth. A well-dressed man walked up. "Do you have a reservation, sir?" "No," the man in black replied as he laid a $100 bill on the counter. "I see. How many in your party?" asked the young man. "Just one. And I would like that table," the man in black said, pointing to the table closest to the front door. "But, sir, there are better tables in the back." "That's the one," the dark man said as he slipped another 100 on the counter. "Of course, sir. Right this way," the young man said as he scurried the money into his pocket. The man in black sat down facing the door. A waiter hurried to the table. "Would you care to see our wine list, sir?" "No, thanks. I'm just here for the show." "But, sir, we don't have entertainment here." "I tell you what," the man in black said as he slipped a $100 bill into the waiter's hand. "Just bring me an assortment of your finest pastries and a cappuccino." "Yes, sir," the waiter said as he turned and almost ran to the back. As he was finishing his third pastry, which by the way were exquisite, Daniel Berkshire walked by on his way out. He paused at the door to wait for his limo to pull up. The man in black got the waiter's attention and signaled for another cappuccino. It would be the last one he would be able to get for a while. The waiter got the message and hurried to the bar. A limo pulled up out front. The man in black could see it through the front doors. There were double doors made of solid glass, with etching on them. Daniel Berkshire stepped outside, appeared to look up, then down, then jerked his head up. After that, the doors appeared to have suddenly been painted red, and there was a thud against one of them. This got one of the employees' attention, a young girl in her mid-20s. She stepped toward the door and started to open them. The man in black put down his pastry and covered his ears with both hands. The girl opened one of the doors, looked down, and started to scream. She screamed for about 1 minute, then promptly fainted. The scream brought other employees and some customers running to see what had happened. "Well, looks like the show's over," the man in black said. He got one of the waiters by the arm, handed him $200, and asked where the back door was. The waiter looked dumbfounded and just pointed to the left back corner. The man in black strolled out the back door and was 3 blocks away before he heard the first siren. Chapter 11. The next morning, the board of directors for Biogenetic held an emergency meeting. The vice president of the company spoke first. He started off by saying what a good man Daniel was, and that he would be greatly missed. He was cut off by one of the other directors. "To hell with him. What are we going to do? I don't want to end up splattered on a sidewalk somewhere." The vice president looked at the man with a shocked expression, then looked at the other members. By the look on their faces, he could tell they were asking the same question. Then another member spoke up. "We have all read the emails, and it looks like the police can't really help us. We have 2 choices, either hide the rest of our lives or give them up." "Give them up? We can't give them up. It would bankrupt the company," the vice president exclaimed. "We have spoken to the accounting division, and they tell us it will not bankrupt us," one of the members spoke up. "They said instead of making billions, we will only make millions. I can live with that given the alternatives. Let's put it to a vote. All in favor?" In turn, all the directors voted aye. The vice president just stood there with his mouth open. Chapter 12. Susan got a call the next day. "Quick, quick, turn on the news." "What now?" "Just turn on the news." Susan reluctantly turned on the TV. There was a silhouette of a person on the screen, and you could tell the voice had been electronically altered. The caption on the bottom of the screen just read, "Spokesperson for Biogenetic Pharmaceuticals." The voice was telling the world that they had a vaccine to prevent most cancers. He went on to list more than a dozen other diseases they had developed cures for and had been keeping them secret. He apologized for the past history of the company and promised in the future any new discoveries would be announced immediately. He also encouraged the other drug companies to come clean on anything they had been hiding. "Well, how about that?" Susan said out loud. This time a cool breeze didn't just brush her face, but seemed to caress her whole body. She closed her eyes and enjoyed it. Sadly, though, she figured this was the last time she would feel this. During the next few weeks, all the other drug companies announced cures for just about every disease there was. Chapter 13. Walter sat at his desk pondering his situation. He had a meeting in a few minutes with several senators and House representatives. They were demanding that he call out the Army, or at least the National Guard, to help the police. "What should I do?" he asked the man in black sitting on the sofa. "I have found you get a better outcome if you just let things run their course," came the reply. The president rose to his feet and walked into the meeting room, still undecided. Walter sat down at the end of the meeting table. "What's on your minds, gentlemen?" The Senate Majority Leader, Charles Ferguson, spoke up. "Mr. President, I think I speak for all here when I say we have to do something about these assassinations." One of the things Walter had detested his whole life was when anyone told him he had to do something. The senator had just made up Walter's mind. Walter cocked his head slightly. "You know, Charlie, I remember some sort of voting scandal the last time you were elected." The senator's face went pale. His mouth opened as if to reply, but nothing came out. "Here's the deal, gentlemen," Walter said calmly. "The only elected officials that have been assassinated so far have had a bunch of skeletons in their closet. And I, for one, am not sure that's such a bad deal." All the mouths in the room fell open at that remark. After a few moments of silence, one senator asked in a meek voice, "What do we do?" Walter replied, "Here's what I will do. If anyone thinks they are a target, they can retire, and I will have the FBI put them into a sort of witness protection program." There was dead silence in the room. Finally, Walter spoke up. "Take as long as you like. It's all the same to me." Meeting adjourned. With this, the president left the room, leaving the senators and representatives to just stare at each other. At first, only a few officials retired, but after a few more were assassinated, over a third of Congress joined the program and quickly disappeared from public view. The president also extended the invitation to all state and city elected officials. New elections were held, but not many people ran for the open seats, and those that did were good, honest people. Chapter 14. Homicide detectives Mark Daniels and Larry Halen were just finishing up another assassination crime scene, a new term loosely used around the office for murders of people whom appeared to have been assholes. When a call came in for them to proceed to yet another murder scene. "Looks like the sharpshooters were busy last night," Mark replied to his partner. "I don't know," Larry replied. "Dispatch said this could be gang-related." Mark and Larry drove to the new crime scene, a part of old downtown known for its problems with gangs. At first, the scene looked like a gang-on-gang drive-by shooting. There were 6 dead gang members in front of an old building, which had been used as a meeting place, as proclaimed by the graffiti on the front of the building. Mark leaned down and uncovered one of the bodies. What caught his eye was the bullet wound. Usually in these cases, there would be several bullet wounds to the body because the opposing gang would have just sprayed the area with an automatic weapon. However, this body had only one wound, dead center of the forehead. Mark called to his partner that was knelt down beside the other bodies. "What kind of wound you got?" "One shot to the head just above the ear," Larry replied. Mark examined the other 4 bodies. They all had similar wounds. He walked over to Larry. "What do you think, partner?" "Don't think this was gang on gang." Mark looked across the street at an old abandoned office building. "I'll bet the shots came from there," he said, pointing to the building. "It's not the right profile for a terminal killer, though," Larry said. "I was afraid this would happen," Mark replied. "What are you talking about?" "The terminal killings have spread to the point regular people are starting to get involved. This was probably done by a normal person that has been hurt somehow by a gang." "You mean a vigilante?" Larry asked. "It makes perfect sense. The timing couldn't be better, with us and the court systems completely clogged with the terminal killings." The two detectives looked at this crime scene a little longer. Mark turned to Larry. "You know, no good people got hurt here." Larry looked at his partner. "And dispatch already thinks it's gang-related." "Looks like a drive-by by an opposing gang," Mark replied. "That's what I think," Larry replied. As the two detectives were getting in their car to leave, a call came over the radio for them to proceed to yet another crime scene. When Mark and Larry arrived at the new crime scene, they noticed a detective from the Drug Enforcement Division was already on the scene. There was only one victim at this scene. Mark and Larry walked up to the body. Mark bent down and pulled the cover back a little. This was a young man in his 20s. There was one bullet wound to the head. The Drug Enforcement detective walked up and introduced himself as Stephen Pittman. Mark recalled seeing his face around the precinct. "I called you guys in on this because of the type of wound," Stephen said. "Why were you called on this?" Larry asked. "The first officer on the scene recognized this guy as one of the local drug dealers, so dispatch sent me over." "Was he a known drug dealer?" Mark asked. "Yes, he was one of the biggest in this area," Stephen replied. Mark gave Larry a questioning look. Larry looked at Mark, then shrugged his shoulders slightly. "Well, looks like two drug dealers were fighting over turf to me," Mark states. "Yep," Larry followed. Stephen looked shocked. "But the entry point of the bullet, plus the fact of only one shot," he blurted out. Mark waited until he caught Stephen's eyes with his. "Looks like two drug dealers fighting to me," Mark said in a slightly lower and more authoritative tone. "But," Steve started to protest again, and then he got the message. Oh, okay. Yeah. That's what it looks like to me also." "Are we good?" Mark asked Stephen. "Yep, I see where you're coming from," Stephen replied. As Mark and Larry drove away, Larry turned to Mark. "You know, this terminal thing might not be so bad." "We'll see," Mark replied. Chapter 15. After the murder of Daniel Berkshire, the press started snooping around. Good investigative reporters could smell a good story 100 miles away. Jeff Ashwood was just that kind of reporter. He had contacts everywhere, and when the ones at the county morgue told him about an increase in murder victims, his eyebrows perked up. He questioned the police chief, who said the crime rate was normal. Yet his informants inside the police department said the crime rate had increased 70%. His eyebrows perked up a little higher. Jeff was a freelance reporter, but he sold most of his stories to the Post. Jeff scheduled a meeting with the editor that afternoon. As Jeff told the editor what he had discovered, he couldn't help but notice that the man got more nervous as the discussion went on. By the time Jeff was finished, the editor had small drops of sweat on his forehead. The editor started writing on a notepad. As he did this, he assured Jeff that there was no story here, and it was just all coincidence. Jeff was about to protest when the editor handed him the note. It read, "Office and phones are bugged. Meet me across the street at the cafe in 1 hour. Make it sound like you believe me." "Okay, boss. Maybe I'm just chasing a ghost. I'll see if I can dig up a better story." An hour later, the two were having lunch across the street. "Okay, tell me what's all this about," Jeff began. "Look, you really don't want in on this. They could kill me for just talking to you." "Who would kill you?" "The FBI." "Why?" "You were right about the murder numbers, but the government is keeping them secret, and they don't want the public to know. The FBI came around before anybody discovered anything and told all the TV stations and newspapers not to publish anything about the increase in murders. They said it was a matter of public security, and anyone caught could and would be shot on the site as a terrorist threat. They put all TV and radio stations on a 30-second delay with one of their men at the button. There's one of their men down at our presses with his hand on the kill switch if he doesn't like what we print. My God! Look, the only reason I'm telling you this is because I know how you are when you get the scent of a story. Is this all you know? This is all I know and all I want to know. If you crack this story, don't bring it to us. We won't be able to print it. And with that, the editor got up and left the cafe. As Jeff sat there trying to think of his next move, a man in a black suit walked up and slid into the booth. Jeff felt a cold chill run down his spine. He looked at the man's face. He didn't look like an FBI agent. "I was sitting in the next booth and couldn't help but overhear your conversation," the dark man said. "Can I help you?" Jeff asked. "No, but I might be able to help you. If you are really serious about this story, this might help," the dark man said as he slid a business card across the table. "Who are you?" "No one in particular," the man in black said as he got up and walked away. Jeff picked up the card. It read, terminaln.com. When Jeff got home, he tried to go to the web address, but it was no longer there. He tapped it into a search engine and found thousands of results. As he clicked on the first few results, all he got back were blank pages, as if someone had removed them. Maybe there is something, he thought as he continued down the list. After about 50 blank pages, Jeff scrolled to the bottom of the page and clicked on the last page of search results. As he clicked on this page, he started getting some information. Finally, he found a page that claimed to be the original terminal end. Jeff quickly scanned down the page. He then clicked on the print button. The printer window popped up. It told him there were over 100 pages. He told it to cache them and start printing. The little hourglass popped up and began to spin. In a few seconds it stopped spinning and the printer began to hum. Just as Jeff was about to read more of the page, the screen went blank. He immediately hit the refresh button. Still another blank screen. Good thing I bought that extra memory for the printer, Jeff thought. The printer, having downloaded all the pages to its own memory, was busy shelling them out, page after page. As Jeff began reading, he thought at first there was no connection. But toward the end of the instructions on how to fake a credit card and what rifle was good for sniping, it all started to come together. This is all good and fine, but I need proof, Jeff thought. The next day, Jeff went to the largest hospital in the city. He stopped at the information station and ascertained where the terminal ward was. It was on the 10th floor. As he got off the elevator, he noticed the nurse's station to his left. Not wanting a confrontation, he turned right and walked down the hallway. The hallway ended at a T-junction. He turned right again. He noticed there were people sitting in chairs outside of some of the rooms. That's a strange place for relatives to be, Jeff thought. As he passed the first pair, a man and a woman, he quickly glanced at them. His reporter's eyes were sharp and didn't miss much. The couple seemed to be more bored than bereaved. As Jeff passed the next couple, a pair of men, he made note of the room number, 1039. He pretended to stumble and fall. One of the men reached out to catch him. Jeff caught himself by putting his hands on the man's sides. On his right side, Jeff felt ribs and muscle. However, on the left side, he felt the distinct shape of a shoulder holster. These guys were at least cops, if not FBI, Jeff thought. Jeff regained his footing, graciously thanked the man, and continued down the hallway. He soon found himself back at the elevator. Jeff got into the elevator and pushed the basement button. As he was waiting, he got out his cell phone. Just as the elevator stopped, he triggered the phone to video record, then put the phone to his ear. Jeff stepped out of the elevator and pretended to be in the middle of a conversation with his Aunt June. Jeff didn't get very far when a man in a maintenance uniform asked him why he was in the basement. Jeff pretended to put Aunt June on hold and turned the phone toward the worker. "I'm looking for the cafeteria," Jeff replied. "That's 2 floors up." "I must have hit the wrong button." "Which way back to the elevator?" "It's over there, to your right." "Thank you." Jeff turned and started in the direction the man had indicated. He also returned the phone to his ear and continued his conversation with Aunt June. "Can't chew gum and walk, let alone walk and talk on a phone at the same time," the maintenance worker said, and returned to his task. When Jeff got home, he downloaded the video into his computer, scanned it until he got a shot of the worker's name tag, froze the video, and cropped the name tag. Jeff then went to the bathroom, wet his hair, combed it straight back. He returned to his computer and took a shot of him with his webcam. He then replaced the worker's picture with his picture, and then printed it. Jeff went to the bedroom where he kept a collection of old press passes in one of the dresser drawers. He selected one, peeled back the plastic cover, and inserted the new worker's tag. Jeff got back on his computer and looked at the hospital itself, dug through some documents that you could fill out online, and clipped the masthead off them. He then created what appeared to be a daily work schedule and posted the hospital's masthead on the top. He printed out several copies of this. He then filled out one of the bogus work schedules, putting "checking the oxygen regulator in room 1039 at the top of the list. He put this one on top and attached the others to an old clipboard. After a little searching, he found a store not too far away where he could buy uniforms. The next day he found the store and selected a uniform that matched what the worker in the basement had been wearing. Jeff got to the hospital a little before 6 o'clock the next morning. He was hoping to catch the night shift of guards, or whoever they were at the end of their shift. When he got off the elevator at the 10th floor, he turned and walked away from the nurse's station. He then retraced his steps back to room 1039. There were two men sitting outside the room. Jeff didn't recognize either of them from the other day. Here we go, Jeff thought. Jeff walked up to the door as if he owned the hospital. As he reached for the doorknob, one of the men grabbed his arm. "You can't go in there." "What do you mean?" Jeff said in his most blue-collar accent. "We can't allow you to enter this room," came the reply. "And you are?" "I am Agent Harwood of Homeland Security." "And your badge is where?" The agent reached into his pocket and produced a badge. "I see. Okay. Let me see here." Jeff pretended to flip through the paperwork on his clipboard. As he did this, he pretended to talk to himself just loud enough for the agents to hear. "Oh, where are you? I know I got one. Here we go." "Okay, now, that was Agent Harwood from Homeland Security," Jeff said as he pretended to fill out some paperwork. "What are you doing?" the agent inquired. "Oh, this is a refusal of care form. In fact, it's the first thing you learn to do when you start to work here," Jeff said in a matter-of-factly. He glanced up from the form and gauged the agent's reaction. He then added, "The next time you get a break, you should go up on the roof and look up. You will see some dark objects circling the hospital. You might think they are birds, but in fact they are lawyers, and they are just waiting for someone to make a mistake." Jeff looked up again and could see small beads of sweat starting to break out on the agent's forehead. "I'll just need to see your badge again so I can get the number. What were you going to do in there?" Jeff ruffled through his paperwork. "Check and repair oxygen regulator." "All right, be quick about it," the agent spat. Jeff entered the room. There was an elderly man, appeared to be in his late 60s, in the bed. As the door slowly closed behind him, Jeff said in a loud voice, "Good morning, sir. I'm here to check your oxygen regulator." The door clicked shut behind him, and Jeff went into reporter mode. He quickly reached to the lower part of his back and retrieved the small camcorder that was taped there. Jeff quickly moved to beside the bed and spoke in a low voice. "Sir, I'm not an employee of the hospital. I'm an investigative reporter. Can I have your permission to videotape our conversation?" The elderly man looked at him almost joyful. "Well, hell yes, you can. I've been hoping someone like you would come along before I kicked off." "We have to be quick," Jeff warned. "Why are you being guarded?" "I killed my son-in-law." "Why?" "A little while after the doctors told me I had 3 months to live, I found out he was beating my daughter and my grandkids." "What did you do?" "I just walked up behind him and shot him in the head." "You don't seem to have any remorse." "He was an evil man and needed to die." "You say that matter-of-factly." "Well, I found this website. Oh, what was the name? Terminal something. Anyhow, it had all these postings of what other people in my shape were doing. And that's what caused you to shoot your son-in-law? I guess the part that got me was to try to make other people's lives a little better, no matter the cost. How long have you got? The doctors say I have about 2 weeks. The old man let out a laugh that turned into a severe coughing spell. Hell, I'm supposed to go on trial in 4 weeks. Don't think I'll make that court date. You don't look very dangerous, so why the guards? Oh, the guards aren't for me. They're for people like you. See, the government is trying to keep a lid on this. Well, I promise I'll do my best to blow the lid off. Thank you, the old man said in the kindest voice Jeff had ever heard. Jeff turned the camera off and quickly concealed it again. As he walked across to the door, he said, "If you have any other trouble with that, just ring the nurse, okay?" Jeff nodded to the agent and walked down the hallway. As he drove home, he pondered his options. If he tried to break this locally, he would be arrested. If he tried nationally, it would yield the same result if they had control of all the major networks and papers. What he needed was a back door. When Jeff got home, he took the video and edited it with his home computer and added a little commentary. He then brought up a map of the Northern Hemisphere with an overlay of the major internet lines. He studied the map for some time, then found what he wanted. There were some major lines just across the border in Canada that led overseas without coming back into the USA first. Jeff loaded the video into his laptop, packed up a few things, got in his car, and headed north. The next morning, Jeff crossed into Canada. He had no trouble at the border. Jeff drove on a little ways until he came to a good-sized town. He drove around until he found a coffee shop that offered free internet. He went in and ordered a large hazelnut cappuccino and a couple of pastries. He selected a booth in the corner and fired up his laptop. Over the years, Jeff had made quite a few contacts in Europe and Asia, and even a couple in Japan. He hoped they hadn't forgotten him. The laptop came to life and found the coffee shop's wireless server. Jeff emailed a copy of the video to all of his contacts, even the ones in the USA, just in case. He looked around nervously, expecting someone to jump up and arrest him, or worse, shoot him. After a few minutes, Jeff relaxed. Maybe I got away with it, he thought.